Now, one question I had when I got the AoHun WRM is why it's just slow and bumpy and locky. Because it can corner cut reasonably well, but then it locks up quite easily, just suddenly, on things that it would otherwise corner cut. And I looked in, and the YuHu V2M has slightly better corner cutting, obviously, but can also turn much faster and doesn't have those lockups. It will just keep turning. So I had a look at the mechanism, and I think I have a good hypothesis of what the problem is. Obviously I'm not a cube designer, so I don't really know, but I think this is something to bear in mind when it comes to megaminx hardware in the future. So this brings me right back to the Diane Guhong, which was considered probably one of the first modern speed cube. And originally it was much faster than other cubes, but it had a popping issue, and it was quite easy to pop. So what they did was they introduced torpedoes, and these torpedoes can be removed, so you could decide whether you wanted them or not, and that slightly decreased the popping issue. However, it also slowed the puzzle down a bit, which made it not as good. So now can corner cut a bit and not pop as easily. It can still pop sometimes, and that was still an issue, but not as big an issue, and people had the freedom to choose. Nowadays it's basically been decided that torpedoes are necessary, and all modern speed cubes basically include them and don't give you that option anymore. But popping a megaminx is different to popping a 3x3. For a 3x3, you twist an edge, as shown. And this is one thing non-cubers struggle with, which is why cubers can so easily take a piece out and non-cubers can't. However, with a megaminx it's different. You can't just twist an edge to take it apart. That just doesn't work in the slightest. To take a piece out of a megaminx, you take the corner out first, and then you can take the edge. Now if you try to do that on a 3x3, it would basically be impossible with the modern designs, but taking an edge out is fine. So this raises a point. What's the point in having torpedoes if edges aren't the pieces that can easily pop out? So with this having torpedoes on the AoHun WRM, it bumps against the other edge pieces, causing that bumpy, locky feeling that you have, and you can hear the slight sound of it bumping on the torpedoes. However, with the YuHu V2M, which I think is why it's so much better, is it doesn't have any torpedoes. It just has a simple mechanism like this, and it doesn't have a popping issue because the edge is firmly in place inside the corner, so it doesn't need an extra torpedo. And I think if you put a torpedo there, it would wreck the cube without any question. So it just turns absolutely fine and doesn't bump into other pieces at all, which makes it turn much faster. So this is what I think is the problem with the AoHun WRM. It's got torpedoes, and that basically ruins it. I think if the torpedoes were removed, this cube would perform pretty well. I don't think it would quite be as good as a YuHu V2M, but it'd be much closer. Now, there is another thing to mention, and that's the Shangqiao Mr. M Megaminx. It's quite nice in my opinion. It's not quite as good as the YuHu V2M, but I think it's better than the AoHun WRM. Here's why. No torpedo. So I think that is the determining factor, and I think we'll see far less megaminxes with torpedoes like this in the future, because it slows it down unnecessarily. You don't need them on a megaminx, because edges aren't the popping issue. Now, obviously it goes without saying, they help a tiny bit. The AoHun WRM does pop less than the YuHu V2M, but pops are so infrequent on the YuHu V2M that that's completely irrelevant.